Cowboys fans, welcome into the Sunday show here on How Bout Wow. Thanks for hitting play. Micah Parsons poison pill details between the Cowboys, Packers, and two NFC divisions. The breaking news here on your Sunday, Week 10. We'll get into that, but something I'm excited to get your thoughts on. Leave a comment down below. It's two things about the Cowboys and Packers second half that people are not talking about yet. We're going to get into that here in just a few minutes. Here on the Cowboys bye week. Take it away, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
All right, I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan. With me, as always, the all-academic SEC Laminate Kentucky Newbear Lesnewski. Buddy, how the heck you doing today?
Not enough coffee in the world. We just activated my wife and my 6-year-old daughter's 21-day to return window. One's on crutches, one's on a walker. I got a 6-year-old on a walker, like a miniature little old lady. It's a rough week.
Well, you're crushing it, dude. We appreciate you making time here in that busy life. If you like the channel, if you like the show, please like the video. It's the number one thing you can do for us if you want to give back for the free content that we deliver for you at least 4 times weekly here on How Bout Wow. Okay, the top story, buddy. If the Packers trade Micah to the NFC East in the next 2.5 years, they would have to give the Cowboys their 2028 first-round pick. The Packers deploying that poison pill in a trade of the Brett Favre to the New York Jets way back in the day. And it's something they like to do. What's interesting is I can't imagine the Packers wanting to trade Micah anytime soon. I don't know why it would be necessary, but the Cowboys want to make sure they don't suffer the public humiliation of Micah hoisting the Lombardi for the Eagles. What might be more interesting, though, is the Packers who initiated this wanting to make sure Kenny Clark is not traded to the North. That's what I think was the genesis of this, you know? So they put in the double poison pill. I think it's much more likely the Cowboys would try to trade Kenny Clark after this season, because if he's still on the roster, it's a $20 million hit, and I just don't feel like he's a $20 million player at this point in his career. What's your takeaway on this story, Newbear?
Well, Micah's going to hit free agency again on the right side of 30. So I think at the end of the day, this is a whole lot of – it's not fake news. I mean, it's a really interesting thing to do inside of a contract, and to have language by the letter of the law that earns you right a first round pick based on rivalries is it actually it's kind of cool. It's kind of nostalgic. It takes me back into previous generations when that shit mattered and people weren't jersey swapping, and I guess I can get down with the praying, right? Because we should all want to lift each other up and thank whatever force is at work for keeping you healthy and giving you a shot to play a child's game and make a whole lot of money, doing so. But like beyond that, I hate everything else that you see, these guys like being way too buddy. Like I want, Isaiah and the bad boy Pistons and Michael Jordan in my sports mix. So, I like the fact that there is language in this contract that dictates terms. I think it would have been interesting if they would have tried to sneak in the whole NFC East, because seeing him twice a year in any other team's color, knowing what Jackson Dart might take off and do, knowing what Jaden Daniels did just last season and, you think has a long run there in Washington. Like, I'm actually surprised it doesn't include the whole division.
Yeah, it does. It does. It includes the entire NFC East and the entire NFC North.
I thought it was just Eagles.
No. I think both teams want to make sure these players are non-factors for the.
Okay, I misread. Well, that makes it even better, because now it's like on like Donkey Kong, and as much as you better play, you better earn every dollar, and then by the way, if Green Bay were to fall on their face, if Jordan Love were to have a catastrophic injury and they were to have to start over, then you're basically saying, is he going to San Francisco? Is he going to Los Angeles?
Yeah.
That's a really fascinating thing to think about, given where he was and what the public narrative was. Like, no one thought Jerry was going to move this guy. Everyone thought it was just going to be the same old song and dance, and then they pay him $50 million a year. And not only did they move him, but it was like earth-shattering relative to the Super Bowl window of the team they did send him to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you want to make sure you're avoiding, because this Philadelphia contention has been a nightmare. They won the first one in Minnesota. What was that, 7 or 8 years ago? And then in 2023, they kind of collapse and fall apart there late in that season. You end up winning the division. And then 2024 was like, oh, there's more drama happening. And then they actually figure it out. They rally and they win the Super Bowl. I just like knowing that this bothers Jerry Jones in some way. Sometimes I wonder if he likes the Eagles and big rivals being better, so it makes their TV ratings higher when you're going up against the former champions, or there is a threat inside the division. But my other takeaway would be it's clearly personal. And if you want to drive the bargain as hard as Micah and his agent David Mulligetta did in the offseason, we'll send you somewhere cold and make sure you never get a chance to play for the team that you really want to play for, at least in your prime. He's going to be a free agent, in 3 or 4 years. So he'll have wants to be an Eagle, but the Cowboys will do nothing to allow that to happen if they can help it.
So Jonathan Taylor just threw up a 50-burger in fantasy football on a walk-off. Also, breaking news, to rest in peace, Paul Tagliabue, the former commissioner, no longer with us. A lot of stuff just popping up and popping off in the world of the NFL today alone. And what's fascinating about that is how it ties back to the engagement farm, and how Jerry Jones has basically drummed up yet another way, even in a place where, like you just said, you would want good other rivalry teams to be good so that the games are good, so that the ratings are good. Well, now here we are talking about angst and trolls and everything in between, Stan and hater, being able to talk about this thing and as another layer to, okay, Jerry Jones, for 30 years you've been keeping us from a Super Bowl, but you're keeping your staff up at night to include poison pill language and contracts. I mean, this is just going to spin itself through the cycle.
I love it. And he's cranking up the heat of the dish he's serving as the team slide from 2024 now into 2025 gets worse. It's just like he told you on the red carpet over the summer. If things get boring, he knows how to keep them as the top story in the NFL. Okay, speaking of that, the hottest thing smoking right now for the Cowboys is the long term. It's not the short term. Cowboys going 6-2. Actually sneaking in a playoff run here, or the Packers missing the playoffs. Okay, there's two different ideas. I think both are more realistic than people think they are right now. Newbear, which one would you want to hear about first?
I want to hear about the Packers missing the playoffs first, especially because everyone's been talking about them being the, week to week. They've had some stinkers, but when they're right, everyone thinks they're the class of the NFC.
Okay, if they lose to Philly on Monday, their playoff percentages will drop to 67% if you want to do the analytics and projection world, which, would be too good to be true for the Cowboys if they would, then lose another game and drop below 50%. I think at that point, people will be talking about it a lot. And maybe that's a long shot right now. Their playoff odds are close to 80%, but I do want to put it out there because they have to play Philly Monday. They have to play the Lions, the Ravens, and the Broncos. But it's much more about the fact that their defense is not physical enough. They don't have great corners. And there's a pretty good book out on Jordan Love right now. If you can pressure without blitzing, they can easily score under 30 points. Pressure with no blitz, Jordan Love is 30th, 31st, 32nd. He's somewhere in there playing under pressure right now. The problem is when you blitz him, he is one of the top-rated, if not the top-rated quarterback against the blitz. But they lost Tucker Kraft for the season. Division's tough. They have to play the Bears twice, who have 2 wide receivers and a tight end to contend with. If you can protect Caleb Williams, he's going to be able to put up points, and I wouldn't be surprised if they split those games against Chicago. So you look at the tie against the Cowboys, you look at their 2 other losses. Could they lose 3 or 4 of these games? I think absolutely, but it's got to start Monday night against the Eagles.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. Tucker Kraft had really emerged, but they actually had another tight end that they were just as high on, and maybe even more so, that I think they've been waiting to break out with. It's the Oregon State kid, right? Luke Musgrave, is that right? Is it?
Yeah.
And as you go through the I mean, it's basically bulletproof. If you can make Jordan Rodgers pat the ball, he's going to throw 500 balls. He's going to throw. Remember, we were back out as a kid, and you were playing 500. You throw a ball up, okay. So like for the younger generation that might not know what that is, you throw a ball up, you yell at a number, whoever catches it earns that amount of points. First one to 500 gets to be the one who throws the ball. That's what it's like watching Jordan Love play quarterback some weeks, especially. I mean, some of those picks he threw in Carolina. Why couldn't he throw some of them in Pittsburgh, man? Like he put Juan Thornhill on a meme. And,
well, it's because they blitzed him. They blitzed him more than any other opponent.
Yeah, but even in that game where he had clear reads, he was still just feathering balls up into one-on-one situations, like 50-50 balls, maybe not 500 balls. The ones against Carolina were 500 balls. And I just, man, the thing you brought up about the Bears is it's compacted as well. Their schedule is very weird. They play the Bears twice in 3 weeks. So they go to Chicago, Denver, and then Chicago goes to Green Bay. They also play the Vikings twice in 7 weeks. So like normally like the schedules aren't as compacted as that, especially with the division opponents who know each other as well as they already do. But you already mentioned the Eagles. What you didn't mention was Jackson Dart sandwiched in between that, was Jared Goff sandwiched in between that. You did mention the Ravens. I mean, this is a really interesting schedule when you start thinking about other teams getting right and other teams having to fight for their playoff lives.
I mean, so Cowboys own their pick. Could it be a top 18 pick? I would put the chances right now somewhere around 25 or 30%. But in the next couple of weeks, this could get really exciting scoreboard watching for the Cowboys. Now, I don't think all hope is lost. I won't go as far as Bobby Belt, who on the morning show this week was, debating the idea that they're going to go 6-10 at worst. I think that is maybe a little bit too optimistic.
6-10.
What's that?
Bobby Belt said the Cowboys are going to finish 6-10.
No, he said they're going to go 6-2 down the stretch.
Oh, I got you.
9-7-1.
Yep,
that's his take. Okay, so for me, it really starts with the idea that the only position on the field that's going to be nearly as bad as what we've seen so far on defense is the cornerback spots. You have not upgraded at corner. Everything else on defense is going to be better than this personal hell of watching Cowboys defense. It might have been the worst defense in NFL history that we watched for the last 6 weeks or so going into the bye. Defensive tackle, major upgrade. The edges now with Clowney playing a lot better and Ezeraku emerging. You're going to get much better pass rush going. The linebackers with Wilson and Overshown, and you're getting your safeties back who aren't great, but Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson are going to be 2 to 3 times better than the experiment of undrafted corners trying to play safety over the last couple of weeks. So significantly better. And then you look at the offensive injuries as well, with CeeDee Lamb missing 3 or 4 weeks and Booker and BB missing quite a bit of time. Tyler Smith playing injured. He's going to have, these 2 weeks to recover with the bye. You've missed time at left tackle and right tackle as well. In some games that hasn't necessarily been a bad thing, but they're better with Steele and Guyton, especially when you get into the run game. But, then on top of that, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. We're going back to the Panthers and Bears, but you lose 2 of those games, and at that point in the season, you're like, oh my God, red flag losses. The Cowboys are one of the worst 5 teams in the NFL. But as time goes on, both of those teams, they look like they could be playoff teams. And I don't think they're true contenders. They're not great teams by any stretch of the imagination, but they have a path to victory, and they're significantly improved than what they were last year with Canales and Ben Johnson taking over as head coaches. So losing on the road to a playoff team, that's not a red flag loss. That's just what happens. So you combine all of that together, I think 6-2 is fairly realistic here for the final 8 games. What do you think?
Yeah, the thing about, if we're going to talk about compacted schedules at all, meaning the teams that you play and seeing them as quick turnaround as Packers and Bears, for example, some of these turnarounds and some of these compacted weeks on top of each other are insane, where the Cowboys are playing 2 games in 10 days or 2 games in 11 days, and then like 3 in 17. I mean, they're playing on Thanksgiving, they're playing on Christmas, and take everything out of the equation relative to rivalry and, knowing each other, scheme, player, health, injury, injury luck, football luck, or fumble luck, football gods, zebras, just looking at it alone, right? Technically, what's fascinating about this, the Chiefs aren't a playoff team right now. technically, like as you go through this, the Giants and the Commanders, like who do you really believe in world beater wise? They should be able to beat Vegas. They should be able to beat the Giants. They should be able to beat the Commanders without Jaden Daniels. So now you got to go what? You got to survive Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Detroit.
Got to win one of those and then beat the Chargers and Vikings.
But if you beat Philly and you come through that, you catch Detroit. Yeah, I mean, you can talk yourself into wins, right? Vegas, Minnesota, Washington, New York. Like you just said, you got to go 1-2 against Philly, Kansas City, Detroit. Then you got to beat the Chargers. And man, is that like tantalizing? At the same time, if you trip on yourself and let Ashton Genty get off like Jonathan Taylor did today, if you trip on yourself, you have to beat the Raiders. If you don't beat the Raiders, it's basically over. You should probably play Joe Milton and try to get something for him. I mean, that's how crazy the doomsday stuff is if you lose to the Raiders. So beat the Raiders, beat Philly, control your own destiny. And
usually I'm not afraid of looking at things from the context of tanking, but if the question was, and leave a comment down below, would you rather sneak into the playoffs or slide back to a top 10, maybe top 8 pick? I want the run. I want this team to go 6-2, sneak into the playoffs, and maybe be the team that nobody wants to face. If you would go 6-2, there's not a lot of wild card teams or teams other than the first 2 teams in the conference that are actually even getting to the Super Bowl. But if you went out and played that way over the next 8 games and managed to win 6 of those, I would think there might be a decent chance that you could win a couple of playoff games, get into the NFC title game, and who knows what happens after that. Like, if you would make that run, you might end up being better than what the Commanders were last year. They found themselves in the NFC title game, and getting Diggs back, Deron Bland bouncing back from maybe the worst game of his career, and then Hooker and Wilson proving at safety, and then Logan Wilson at middle linebacker showing that, hey, an actual middle linebacker who communicates well, gets guys lined up, and is preparing as an essential coach on the field. Like, all those things could add up to, I think this team, when they get to the playoffs, might be dangerous. So I'd rather have them go 6-2 and end up with the 19th pick than have them go 2-6 and end up with the 9th pick. How about you?
Well, absolutely. First and foremost, answer the question. Simple, flat, plain. Hell yeah. Give me 6-2. Give me 7-1-8. No, give me the run. And the addition to that is I can't hear you talk about every level of this defense and not just, man, what are they going to get out of Diggs? Like, I can't stop thinking about it. And it's not even about Diggs and some of you talk about going back and watching film and the business decisions that he's made and the tackles and the unwillingness to put his body on the line. Now that we're learning that his body might actually be broken and it might be the other knee and all this other stuff that we've talked about these past few weeks, I can't stop thinking about Deron Bland in Philly having to cover A.J. Brown or Rashee Rice Amon-Ra St. Brown, believe it or not, I actually feel better about. I don't know if I feel great about J-Mo, but at least J-Mo isn't 6'4", 225, right? Like, do you trust Deron Bland against Justin Jefferson, against even Quentin Johnston, or Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, Keenan taller, longer, but older, slower, Ladd smaller. So it's like, you like that matchup. You like him more against Terry McLaurin than you do against Deebo Samuel. You like him more against Wan'Dale Robinson, than Lil Jordan Humphrey in New York. Like, the Diggs thing, like you said, corner is the only thing that they didn't really do. I don't know why they're not in on the Asante Samuel Jr. sweepstakes. I don't know why they're not talking. I know you said they don't want anything to do with Gilly Lock after the experience they had and him getting up there and Father Time being undefeated and stuff. But, like, if Diggs can't go, it's not even really about Diggs. It's about the matchup with Bland. Because if Bland is in a matchup, traits-wise, size-wise, he can win those matchups. But if you put him against Marvin Harrison, A.J. Brown, the equivalent of that team's that guy, he's going to lose week in and week out.
Yeah, and then that takes us into a conversation like, what do you want to do with those draft picks? Let's say both of them are, average but not great picks, somewhere around 15 and 23. 14 and 23, I think, is around the projection right now of who these teams are. What would you be looking to do with those draft picks? We are hoping Revel has a good rookie year. I don't know what the chances are I guess I'd put it 10 or 15%. Like he shows he can be one of your top 3 corners and do the job better than anybody else in the building. There's just so much to overcome as a rookie in general. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's not probable. But even that, with that being said, you're going to move on from Diggs. I think you're going to need another corner. You might need a tackle. I would love it if, they were picking high enough that Caleb Downs, the safety, could be in play. I don't know that you need a defensive tackle or an edge. I don't know if you need a linebacker right now with Logan Wilson and Overshown. We'll just have to see how those stories play out. But, I guess on offense, then I would be looking at, you got to bring George Pickens back, and maybe you're back into looking at running back, but more likely it's right tackle and a Terrence Steele replacement.
So this is I'm going back to the NFL trade deadline, and if people are tired of hearing me talk about it, I just don't fucking care. Like, just because the trade deadline passed, things are not going to get better in Miami. They're going to get worse before they get better. Go get Micah Fitzpatrick, and you're going to have to probably move up to go get Caleb Downs. And it might only be a mid-round or a couple of late-round pick swaps, but he's not getting out of the top 10. That dude is unfreaking believable. He was supposed to be the next Minka. Saban just retired, so he transferred. He was at Alabama and was awesome early and has stayed awesome and only gotten awesomer. And then you start thinking about, what are the Jets going to do with Breece Hall? Because they're going to tag him since they didn't trade him. So are you willing to go out and pay a guy like that if you're willing to let Javonte Williams walk? Like, I think a lot of the guys that we were talking about at the trade deadline become really interesting conversations about 2026 and going forward when you think about the math of both their contracts, their age relative to the holes on this position, depth chart, group by group, 1, 2, 3, like, even if Rebel's right, you still need a third because you want to kick Bland inside, or you want to have the positional versatility to not, let him be a guy, who really just, you're putting him in a position to fail because of what he does well and how big he is doing that. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse on that. I like Deron Bland a lot. I just think that a lot of the memeable stuff from last week, you underestimate how much confidence plays into this stuff from week to week. And when you're lining up against dudes who like Marvin Harrison Jr. and they are dunking on you, and then you project that to happen week in and week out, and you're basically a sacrificial lamb out there on the island, that is tough showing up for work.
All right, it's How Bout Wow here on the bye week. Cowboys will return Monday Night Football against the Raiders in Week 11. Up next here, let's do a little bit of a Week 10 rooting guide that Yahoo has put together for us. Falcons, Colts, and Berlin. Root for the Colts. That's already happened, as Newbear mentioned, in
Jonathan
overtime.
Taylor might be the league MVP, dude. I know I've said that a little bit, but like he just set the Colts franchise record, I believe, for tutties. He saved Sauce Gardner's ass. What did he go for? Like 240? I think he scored 50 fantasy points today.
My God. Giants at Bears. They say root for the Giants because the Bears are 5-3 and they have the tiebreaker against you.
Yes.
Based on what we just said, though, wouldn't you rather have the Bears win that to outpace the Packers for that playoff spot?
Yeah, you talk about only getting one out of the North. The North is going to get really interesting. Look, unless he gets another concussion or at least enters the protocol, I think Jackson Dart's going to play. You want him to get as many reps as possible, right? So, like, win-loss record doesn't really matter with the Giants. What's interesting with the Giants, though, as you think about that week 18 potentially being a win and in situation, is how much confidence do you want them to have? Like, I know the man with the quaff, the future Tom Brady holding a baby goat and a pair of Ugg boots, that is Jackson Dart. My God, is he fun to watch. And my God, does he look good doing it. Like, everyone else around him leveling up would make week 18 a whole lot. Like, my argument for the Bears, rooting for the Bears today and rooting against the Giants going forward, is so everyone else is in the shitter and Jackson Dart's out there running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and maybe you knock him out and take him out early and they shut him down because it's week 18 and you skate to the playoffs.
I mean, he's lost his two best pass catchers, though. He's lost his running back. The offensive line isn't good. I also kind of want the Giants to win, though, just to keep them out of the top 5 pick spot. Like, you could find another edge that could be an absolute nightmare, or a corner. Like, once you're outside the top 10, I'm fairly certain that you're not getting like an instant all-pro. So I wouldn't mind seeing the Giants win a couple of more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this because we're doing the Cowboys show, and I do love the Cowboys, and I am talking about, what's right for the Cowboys, but I'm not rooting for the Giants to beat the Bears. That's where I grew up. That's where my whole family's like, it's not fucking happening.
I love it. Okay, you're rooting for the Ravens to beat the Vikings, who are sitting there at 4-4.
Yeah, the Vikings just need to fucking go away, man.
Yeah, I don't know if they will. I am a JJ McCarthy believer, even though the stats are brutal. I think there's a way about the way that he goes about his business that ultimately he's going to get it figured out. And with Brian Flores as your defensive coordinator, maybe the second half of the season, that thing could, really get humming again. The Saints are at the Panthers. We're rooting for the Saints because the Panthers are a couple of games over 500 now. That one's shocking. We want to root for
do less at the deadline who needed to do stuff with the guys on their roster and what they got going forward than the Saints. What the hell are the Saints doing? Then why did they move anybody?
Just Shaheed, right?
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Alontae Taylor wearing a star.
They should be in a full-on teardown, and with the idea of having the extra draft capital to move up and get a quarterback that they can feel excited about moving into the future. You just see with the Giants how much it infuses you with ability to score and excitement for the fan base.
I mean, they made a huge mistake with what they did in the last draft, and I'm not even going to go down that path because it'll turn into a Kentucky-Louisville thing and all the other machinations of it. And Kellen Moore, right, was once in our house, and we want to have, I don't know, happy hopes and wishes and puppies and ice cream for him down on Bourbon Street.
All righty, it's been a tough week here in Cowboys land, hasn't it? Let's wrap up this edition of How About Wow with some inspiring words from Dak Prescott. He made this speech to high school students in Texas recently. As this runs out, we'll see you next time here for Newbear. I'm Dawson. How about Wow?
Everyone is special. Your life is special. Even if you don't think it's special to you, it's special to people. It's special to your friends. It's special to your brothers, your sisters, your parents. So in those hard times, like he said, ask for help. Talk. Your thoughts, those things that you're feeling, you're not alone. I promise you, I felt them. Your friends have felt them. Your parents have felt them. It's on us, though, to talk about them, to understand how to get solutions. We go through things in life to make sure other people don't have to. Unfortunately, me, Brad, our families, what we've been through is very unfortunate, but that's why we're here. We're using our why. We're using our purpose. We're using our adversity as our purpose, right? We're not going to allow that to define us. We're not going to allow those moments to define their lives. And so we ask you today is continue to spread hope, spread love throughout this day, and not just here on campus. When you go home, in your neighborhoods, through your friends, on social media. I challenge everybody. I've said a lot of people today, make someone else's day.